Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yesterday, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Oh. Yesterday, we were doing this discussion of tax rates. We saw some basic concepts and then we went to the tax rate discussion. And we've seen the normal slab rates that apply. A new section has been inserted, section 115 BAC. We are yet to discuss that section 115 BAC. That means the new regime of paying tax. That discussion is still pending. As far as the old system goes, these are your slab rates. You have three slab rates applicable for three slab rates applicable, one for senior citizen, one for super senior citizen, and the third and the last one being the general slab rate that applies to everyone else. Three basic exemption limits, and broadly speaking, your rates of tax are 5%, 20%, and 30%. We saw a detailed discussion on surcharge. Surcharge will apply if your total income exceeds 50 lakh rupees in case of individual. But as your income exceeds 2 crore rupees and 5 crore rupees, surcharge will be applied at a higher rate on only that tax which is calculated on other income. Other income meaning income excluding capital gains, income excluding dividend income. Capital gains that arises in the stock market, on that the tax that you pay, on that tax the surcharge will be restricted to maximum 15%. Dividend income, effective our current year, dividend income is taxable in the hands of the shareholder, effective previous year 2021. On that dividend income, when you pay tax, the surcharge on that tax will be restricted to 15%. Other than these three incomes, stock market capital gains, short term and long term, and dividend income. Other than these three incomes, if you have incomes which exceed 2 crore, which exceed 5 crores, then the higher rate of surcharge will be applicable only on those taxes that are calculated on those incomes. Rebate will be allowed only if your income does not exceed 5 lakh rupees. The maximum rebate possible is 12,500. Health and education says 4%, that is to be imposed right at the end. Now, these are your tax rates for an individual who wants to pay tax as per the old regime. A small clarification that was introduced by the CBDT, it is relating to, it's nothing significant, it's just because CBDT had come out with this stuff that we are mentioning this. It is relating to calculation of age. You are called as a senior citizen if you are 60 years or above, but less than 80 years at any time during the previous year. So now, suppose 12th of August 2020, today is my birthday, and Today I turn 62 years. That means I have completed 61 years of age, and I step into the 62nd year. So when did I complete 61 years of age? On what date did I complete the age of 61? Eleventh of August, and not 12th of August. Almost all the answers that I've got from you are 12th of August. But then if today is my birthday, then I will complete 1 year. If today is my birthday, from 12th of August 2020 to 11th of August 2021. This will be one full year. So that means if I complete 61 years of age and today it is my birthday, then today I am stepping into the 62nd year. And that means I've completed 61 years. 11th of August, yesterday, 11th August 2020. Today I am starting a new year of my life, 62nd year, which will get over on 11th of August 2021. First thing, did you understand this? So the clarification that was needed was, what if somebody's birthday falls on 1st of April? 1st of April 2020. Now, 1st April 2020 is his birthday. That means, and he is completing, and say he is um, he is starting his 62nd year, effective 1st of April. That means when did he complete 61 years of age? On 1st April or 31st March? 31st March 2020. 31st March 2020 falls in previous year 1920. 1st April 2020 falls in previous year 2021. So can I call him as a senior citizen for previous year 1920 also? This is basically your uh, clarification. For somebody whose age, for somebody whose birthday falls on 1st of April, then he is attaining the age of 60 years or 80 years on the day preceding his birthday. On your screen, if you can read this, if you can take a minute and read the last two paragraphs, the thing that I am putting up on your screen right now. The paragraph starting with the words, the CBDT has wide this circular. Just take a minute and read this para and the next paragraph, please. Yes. Okay, it's done. So Priyal, what this example means is that he's completing 60 years and he's entering the 61st year of his age on 1st of April 2020. So his 60th birthday falls on 1st April 2020 means that he's finishing his age or he's finishing his age of 60 years and entering into the 61st year on 1st of April 2020. Section 115 BAC. Now, this is the amendment for previous year 2021. Okay, Darshan, done. This section 115 BAC, this section gives an option. It's optional, it's not mandatory. It applies if you are an individual or HUF. When you read the section, you realize that there is no mention of whether the individual or HUF should be a resident or a non-resident. So both residents and non-residents are covered by this section. If you exercise this option, then the rates of tax, the slab rates that are announced by the Finance Act will not apply to you. What will apply are slab rates as per section 115 BAC. And there is a single slab rate for all individuals and HUF. As in, for individuals, we are aware that the budget comes out with 3 slab rates: senior, super senior, and others. But if you go for this 115 BAC, the age criteria does not matter. Whether you are a senior citizen, whether you are a super senior citizen, or you fall in the others category less than 60 years, if you go for 115 BAC option, there is a single slab rate applicable. Only one slab rate applies for everyone. Now, as per my old regime, that means the slab rates announced by Finance Act. Generally speaking, 0 to 2,50,000 or 0 to 3 lakhs or 0 to 5 lakhs. My rate of tax is 0. No, these are my basic exemption limits. Then from 2.5 to 5 lakhs or from 3 lakh to 5 lakhs, the slab of 5% applies. From 5 lakh to 10 lakhs, the slab of 20% applies. And any income above 10 lakhs, the slab of 30% applies. Compared to this, in my new regime, the slab rates look a bit different. Every individual has a basic exemption limit of 2,50,000. Then from 2,50,000 to 5 lakh, it is 5%. From 5 lakh to 7.5 lakh, it is 10%. From 7.5 lakh to 10 lakhs, it is 15%. From 10 lakhs to 12.5 lakhs, it is 20%. From 12.5 lakhs to 15 lakhs, it is 25%. And any income above 15 lakhs is 30%. The simple way to remember the new slab rates are, if you observe, there is a gap of 2,50,000 for each slab. It is all in multiples of 2,50,000. First 2,50,000, next 2,50,000, third 2,50,000, fourth 2,50,000. And if you observe the rates of tax, it is an increase of 5% every time. 0, 5%, 10%, 15, 20, 25, 30. This new regime is as per 115 BAC. Now, if you compare, you'll realize that suppose somebody has an income of 8 lakh rupees. 8 lakh rupees. Under the old regime, you will pay tax on that 8 lakh rupees, partly on 8 lakh rupees. You will take basic exemption limit. My income for discussion currently is 8 lakhs. The rate applicable is where my focus is. There will be 0% on some income, 5% on some income, and 20% on some income. But if you opt for new regime, it will be 0, 5, 10, and some income will be taxed at 15%. Under the old regime, you were paying tax at 5% and 20%. Under the new regime, you are paying tax at 5, 10, and some income is taxed at 15. If you had an income of 12 lakhs, under the old regime, it was 5%, 20%, 30%. New regime will be 5, 10, 15, 20. So yes, rates of tax have reduced in the new regime. But 115 BAC, now why do we need to study this separately, and why is it complicated? Your total income multiplied by new slab rates will be the amount of basic tax as per section 115 BAC. This total income is not calculated the way we normally calculate. There are various restrictions and conditions that are put up. When you calculate this total income, exemption that you get under section 10(5). Anybody remembers what is section 10(5)? Leave travel allowance, or what we call as leave travel concession. This exemption is not allowed. Exemption under section 1013A. What is 1013A?
HRA.
HRA, house rent allowance. Exemption is not allowed for house rent allowance. So whatever house rent allowance an employee has received will be fully chargeable to tax if you are paying income tax as per this new section. Exemption under section 1014. 1014 are my special allowances. Maybe you remember something like children education allowance, or children hostel expenditure allowance, or transport allowance, where you used to get exemption under rule 2BB. A certain amount per month was allowed as an exemption. Those exemptions will not be available to you. Exemptions under 1017 will not be allowed. What is 1017? These are exemptions that are allowed to member of legislative assembly, member of parliament, whatever allowances and remuneration that they get as member of as MLAs or MPs, that is all exempt for them. If you want to go for paying tax under this option where your slab rates are reduced slab rates, 1017 exemption will not be available. Similarly, section 1032 exemption will not be available. Anybody remembers what is 1032? No, that is not pension. Correct. Exemption that is allowed when minor's income is clubbed. You get a maximum exemption of 1,500 per child, per minor child. These exemptions will not be available to you. So when you are calculating your total income, you will pay tax, you will include the full amount of house rent allowance without any exemption under the head salaries. You will include the full amount of leave travel concession without taking any exemption under salaries. All those special allowances, no exemption. The allowances that MPs and MLAs get, they will not be taxed under income from salary because they are not government employees. They will be, that income will be treated as income from other sources. When you club minor's income, you will have to include the whole income of the minor without taking any exemption for it. This exemption is not available. Deduction under section 10AA is not allowed. Something that is very important at the CA final level, section 10AA. If you have a business unit in a special economic zone, then the profits that you earn in that special economic zone, they are allowed as a deduction to you, profit based deduction. Generally we always use the word deduction with reference to expenses, but now that you've seen your articleship, you would have understood this. There are some sections in the Income Tax Act which give you a deduction, not an exemption, a deduction, which give you a deduction based on profits, based on incomes. What is the difference? Income which is exempt under section 10 is never included in the gross total income at all. Whereas if it is a deduction, you will include that income in the gross total income. You will deduct a certain percentage of that income, take that as a deduction and not an exemption. This deduction is not available perpetually. This deduction is available for a fixed number of years. After those fixed number of years are over, this profit will be treated like any other normal profit and you'll have to pay income tax. To encourage this special economic zone, section 10AA has been created. Very frequently comes up in your paper, and in our syllabus, section 10AA will appear at multiple places. There are 2-3 important Supreme Court judgments relating to 10AA. When we do the chapter of deductions from gross total income, chapter number 6A, section 80C to 80U, along with that, we will be discussing this 10AA. Formally, properly reading it, we'll discuss it at that point of time. Currently, you may understand it in a simple manner, something like this, that if you are setting up a business unit in a special economic zone, whatever profit you derive from that special economic zone, you are eligible to take a deduction under 10AA if you want to pay tax as per the old regime. But if you want to switch to the new regime, then these profits will be included in your gross total income, but the deduction that is available to you will not be allowed. 10AA as a section will not apply. You will not be getting the benefit of this deduction. Bolo guys, understood this?
Yes.
Okay. certain PGBP deductions are not available. What are they? A deduction under section 32 subsection 1 clause 2a. Well, you know one thing definitely. What is section 32? Depreciation. 32 subsection 1 clause number a. This talks about additional depreciation. Additional depreciation that is allowed if you are involved in manufacturing activities. You get an extra deduction of depreciation, which is 15% of the cost. Now, if you opt for this new scheme of paying tax, additional depreciation is not allowed. Then there is a section 32 AD, which talks about additional investment allowance. I'm sure when we did our inter-CA lectures, this section was existing in your syllabus. If you set up a manufacturing unit in the backward areas of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, and Bihar, then in addition to depreciation, you get an extra deduction. That deduction is now not available. Anybody remembers what is section 35? Right. 35 is not specified business. Specified business is 35 AD. Even that deduction is not available here. Section 35 is talking about scientific research. You get a weighted deduction. Now, if you make a contribution for scientific research, or you make a contribution for social science research, or you make a contribution for statistical research, then while you compute PGBP, you get a deduction for these amounts under the old scheme. But if you want to pay tax under the new regime, all those deductions will be taken away from you. Section 35 as a deduction will not be available, will not be applicable. Similarly, there is a section 35CCC. This talks about getting a deduction if you are involved in an agriculture extension project. We're going to see all these sections in detail when we do PGBP. But currently what I'm trying to tell you is that these deductions are taken away. No deduction will be allowed. Okay, understand this. No deduction will be allowed for additional depreciation. Which means I am taking an example of an individual who is wanting to pay tax under 115 BAC. Who is wanting to pay tax under 115 BAC. Then additional depreciation is not allowed to him, which means normal depreciation will still be allowed. No worries, normal depreciation deduction will be allowed to you. The extra benefit allowed in the form of additional depreciation is no longer available. If you pay an amount for scientific research, social science research, statistical research, those amounts debited to the profit and loss account will have to be disallowed. For a specified business, I don't know how great you remember 35 AD. Cost of fixed assets are given a 100% deduction. Capital expenditure is allowed as a 100% deduction for specified business. Now that 100% deduction is not available. So what I can do is take the cost of those fixed assets, do not take a 100% deduction, but put them into the block of assets. But moment I put it into the block of assets, the only depreciation that I can calculate is normal depreciation. Again, additional depreciation is not available only. So these are the restrictions that are put up for PGBP as the head of income. No restrictions are put up under capital gains. So capital gains can work the way it works. All exemptions, all indexation, etc., cost of acquisition, cost of improvement, capital gains will work the way it is. Under the head IFOS, there was an income. This is a very nominal thing. Under the head IFOS, There was an income called as family pension. A standard deduction was available for family pension. 1/3 of the pension, or a maximum of 15,000, whichever is lower. Even this deduction is now not allowed. Okay, I missed out one more thing here. You get in the chapter of salaries, you get certain deductions under section 16. There are 3 deductions. You get a standard deduction. Maximum standard deduction is 15,000. Sorry, 50,000. You get 50,000. You get a deduction for professional taxes that you pay to the state government. You get a deduction for entertainment allowance. Even these deductions are not permitted. And all your deductions under chapter 6A, that is under section 80C to section 80U, they are also not allowed. The small exception created, 80CCD subsection 2, that is contribution that an employer makes to the pension scheme, deduction is allowed to the employee. And deduction under 80JJAA, this is a deduction where if you create employment, if you create jobs, you get a certain amount as a deduction. These 2 deductions are allowed. Other than that, all these deductions are not available. So the point that you got to understand is, now observe a pattern. In fact, before even you can observe a pattern, let me mention one more thing. If there are any brought forward losses and brought forward unabsorbed depreciation, which is pertaining to point number 1 to point number 4, these points. Salary will never have a loss, but okay. Under the head house property, what is section number 24B?
Deduction.
24B is a deduction, agreed, but deduction on what? No, 24A is a deduction.
Also loan deduction.
So interest on loan for self-occupied properties, that is not allowed. As an individual, if you claim a property as SOP, you get a deduction for interest. Finance Act 2019, last year's budget, has made the amendment in the SOP provision that henceforth you can claim 2 house properties as self-occupied instead of 1. So you get a deduction under 24B for SOP, self-occupied property, let out property, deemed to be let out property. If you are paying tax under this section, then current year interest on loan for self-occupied property will not be allowed. So basically for SOP, your income will be calculated at 0. If you are paying interest on loan for a let out property, if you are paying interest on loan for a deemed to be let out property, that deduction will continue. And any brought forward loss or any brought forward unabsorbed depreciation which pertains to these deductions those brought forward losses and brought forward unabsorbed depreciation also are not allowed to be adjusted while you compute total income. If you have house property loss of the current year, even that set off is not allowed. I don't know if you had actually observed at that point of time when this thing was announced. The general tendency or the general opinion of individuals was that this new regime is actually not useful at all. This new regime is practically, we can very easily ignore section 115 BAC, because you observe this. If you think of a pattern, exemptions are not available to you. House property deductions are not available for SOP. PGBP deductions are not available. More importantly, Chapter 6(8) deductions are not available. A person takes a housing loan to buy a self-occupied property. He gets a deduction of interest under house property chapter. He gets a deduction of the principal amount under section 80C. He is investing into PPF. He gets a deduction under 80C. He pays medical insurance premium. He gets a deduction under 80D. He gives donations. He gets a deduction under 80G. All these sections are existing in the Income Tax Act so that the person makes certain investments, makes certain payments, makes certain contributions, makes certain donations. You are withdrawing away all these deductions. Additional depreciation is allowed to you to encourage manufacturing. Now, as a businessman, you are involved in manufacturing activities. We take away the advantage of additional depreciation. You had deliberately set up your unit in a special economic zone so that you could get an income tax deduction. That deduction is taken away. You had set up a specified business to take 100% deduction of profits. You were giving money for scientific research. All that thing is gone. All those deductions are taken away. Just by reducing the slab rates, you are not doing a great thing as the government, because you are increasing the total income by a huge amount. You are not allowing any exemptions. You're not allowing any deductions. Not only that, if you have a brought forward loss or a brought forward unabsorbed depreciation, that thing is not allowed to be adjusted. Something to observe here. Brought forward unabsorbed depreciation. I'll take that as an example because that is easy to understand. Brought forward unabsorbed depreciation pertaining to point 1 to point 4. So, if there is any brought forward unabsorbed depreciation which includes additional depreciation, you cannot set off that much amount. But that means if there is any brought forward unabsorbed depreciation which includes normal depreciation of the past year, that much you can set off. Only the unabsorbed depreciation pertaining to these above deductions are not allowed for set off and carry forward. If you have a brought forward loss, and that loss is arising because of your section 35 contributions, that loss, that much amount of loss cannot be set off carry forward. If you have a loss from a specified business, because in the past you were doing a specified business, you took a deduction under 35 AD and that resulted into a loss. That loss cannot be set off and carry forward. This is the reason house property loss of the current year cannot be set off carry forward. Brought forward house property loss cannot be set off carry forward. And in the current year, you are not allowing any deduction for SOP interest. So you may think like this, that yes, slab rates have reduced, but at the same time, total income has increased. Government's argument is that, okay, this 115 BAC is optional. We have not made it mandatory. So we are not mandatorily snatching away the exemptions and deductions. It's a choice to you. You want, you can go for it. That means you cannot have a thumb rule here that old regime is better and new regime is not that great. Prima facie, new regime does not sound lucrative. Prima facie does not sound lucrative. But it will all depend on your numbers. It will all depend on your numbers. If you observe the slab rates, maybe you'll get a hint. If a person has income of, say, I took an example of 12 lakh rupees. Under the old regime, he would pay tax at 5%, 20%, 30%. But if he calculates the same 12 lakh rupees under the new regime, then under the new regime, the rates applicable will be 5, 10, 15, and 20. The manner of calculating total income is different. But same 12 lakhs taxed in the old regime, you will pay tax at 30% on some amount. You will pay tax at 30% on that 2 lakh rupees, which is about 10 lakhs. From 10 lakhs to 12 lakhs, you would pay tax at 30%. And the same 10 lakh to 12 lakhs in the new regime is being taxed at 20%. So tax will reduce. New regime, whether it is beneficial or not, old regime, whether it is beneficial or not, will depend on the facts of the case. You will have to separately analyze whether applying the new regime makes sense or not. Bolo, are you clear with this?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Nahin, Irbaz, I'm coming to it. Ek second. Whether you select that option and does it perpetually apply or not? No, it's not that way. There is a complicated drafting here also involved. I was just trying to put forth the concept that outright rejecting one system and accepting the other system is not correct. 115 BAC, when it says that this is optional, it also says that this option is to be exercised every year. Now, relating to this, what they have done is they've said if you are an individual or HUF, and this individual or HUF does not have PGBP income, then you can exercise this option every year. You may not exercise this option in a particular year, but next year you can exercise it. So you can go for 115 BAC in the current year, previous year 2021. Next 3 years, you may still go back to the old regime and then come back to the new regime a year thereafter. If you are an individual or HUF who does not have PGBP income, option to be exercised or not exercised, this can be selected every year independently. You can keep on switching over. But if you are an individual or HUF who has PGBP income, then option once selected will apply to that assessment year and subsequent assessment years. But a one-time withdrawal is allowed. You can withdraw it just once. I am someone who is involved in PGBP and I want to pay tax under 115 BAC. I want to pay tax under 115 BAC and I select that option. For the next 4 years, I keep on paying tax as per 115 BAC. Now I want to withdraw myself from 115 BAC. I can withdraw it just once. One time withdrawal is allowed. Once I withdraw, after withdrawal, section 115 BAC will never apply for all subsequent assessment years. Will never be applicable. So once I decide to withdraw 115 BAC, then 115, once I decide to withdraw myself from 115 BAC, henceforth I cannot go back to this section. Then every year I have to pay tax as per the regular budget only. Rev, can you please let me finish, beta? Please let me finish. Your option selected will apply to that year and subsequent assessment years. You are given a choice that you can withdraw yourself from 115 BAC. Once you withdraw yourself from 115 BAC, subsequently you cannot switch over back to 115 BAC. But in a subsequent assessment year, which is after the withdrawal, after you've withdrawn, if the assessee has no PGBP income, then 115 BAC can be availed again by covering yourself under this clause. So I am a person who is involved in business activities. I decided to pay tax under 115 BAC. I paid tax under 115 BAC for 5 years. 6th year, I decide to withdraw myself. 115 BAC will never apply to me. But later on, if in a particular future year, PGBP as a head of income does not apply to me, I discontinue my business. Now I can still go back to 115 BAC and cover myself under this category, an individual not having a PGBP income, and I can pay tax again under 115 BAC. And once I go for this option, that option is available every year to me. Understood this? Yes, PGBP includes speculative business income. PGBP includes, no, there is no logic to it. There is no logic for this. What you can say is that the logic is something like this. If there is again PGBP income, then you cannot go back to 115 BAC. Then for that year, normal provisions will apply because you had once withdrawn from 115 BAC when you were having PGBP income. Then you choose to come back to 115 BAC when you don't have PGBP income, and that is permitted. So in a future year, if you again have PGBP income, this section will never apply to you. You will have to pay tax as per the regular, as per that particular budget's rate. So you can take all your deductions for that year, but the budget rate will apply. These rates of tax will not apply. Why will the government do something like this? Achha, what difference? Two things. What difference does it make? Whether the government has the agenda behind it is like, see, this is made optional. It's not made mandatory. What if somebody does not have? What if somebody does not have PGBP incomes? So deduction under 10AA, these deductions, they are not available only. They are not applicable only. What if somebody does not make any chapter 6A deductions? I mean, I don't invest in PPF. I don't give any donations. Then if you observe, slab rates under the new regime will be beneficial to me. I'm visualizing someone who is having income, let's say 6 lakh rupees, 6 lakh rupees, and that 6 lakh is calculated without doing any business activity, without making any investment anywhere, no ATC deduction, no medical insurance premium, nothing. I earn income and that's it. My income is not under the head salaries. And even if it is under the head salaries, I don't take house rent allowance in my salary package. I don't take leave travel concession in my salary package. All I take is my basic salary, dearness allowance, and that's it. There's no minor whose income is being clubbed. So for somebody for whom these exemptions are not applicable only, the question of claiming them or not claiming them does not arise. For somebody who does not do PGBP, second point, third point will not apply. Whether it is beneficial for foreign individual investors or not, no, you cannot say that. You cannot say that because it again depends on the amount of incomes that they have. Let me come to this foreign individual investors in some time. For somebody who does not have PGBP income, for somebody who has salary income, but these exemptions don't apply only because he never gets that as part of his salary package, then an income of 6 lakh rupees computed under the old regime and computed under the new regime will be the same, because the new regime says don't take all these deductions and exemptions, but they are anyways not applicable to me. So my computation of income under old and new is practically the same. Then slab rates under the new regime become beneficial to me. Yes, you can say that the government never wants to eliminate the old. It is giving an option by inserting this new regime. Also, if you observe one more thing, now, once you read the section on your own, you will observe this. 115 BAC subsection 1 says, notwithstanding anything contained in this act, but subject to the provisions of this chapter. And the drafting goes thereafter, that an individual or HUF may opt to pay tax as per the new slab rates. Now pay attention to what I do, and please remember this, it is necessary for interpretation throughout the subject. Notwithstanding. Notwithstanding means overriding. The entire Income Tax Act is overridden, but subject to the provisions of this chapter. This chapter as in chapter 12 of the Income Tax Act, which has sections from 111A to 115BBG. Now interpret this much. If you apply 115BAC, then the balance part of the act gets overridden. But sections contained in this chapter 12 do not get overridden. Meaning, if your total income has short-term capital gain under section 111A, has long-term capital gain under section 112, has casual winnings which are covered by 115BB, has long-term capital gain under section 112A, it has dividend income, for dividend, there is no special rate of tax applicable. Now, all these sections fall in which chapter? They fall in chapter 12. Is chapter 12 also overridden by 115 BAC? Is chapter 12 also overridden by 115 BAC? No, it is not. What does this mean? That short term under 111A will be taxed at 15%. Long term will be taxed at 20%. Casual winnings 30%. Long term under section 1128 10%. And this balance income will be as per new slab rates, because this total income is calculated as per 115 BAC. When we pay tax under the old regime, you may remember this from your IPCC, when we pay tax under the old regime, we split our total income into parts. Short term under 111A, long term under 112, casual winning. If you remember your tax calculation, you split it like this. You remember this stuff? That under the old system also, the total income gets divided like this. Now, that concept is equally applicable here also. That you will pay tax on those special incomes as per the special rate of tax applicable. On your balance income, you will either pay tax as per the old regime after taking all deductions and exemptions, but paying tax at 5, 20 and 30%. Or you will pay tax as per the new regime by not taking those exemptions and deductions, but paying tax at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 and 30%. And for an individual who is not covered by, for an individual who does not have PGBP income, he can keep on switching old regime and new regime every year. He has to exercise that option before he files the return of income. So he can do a calculation every year and decide that current year I'll cover myself under the new regime. Next year I can cover myself under the old regime also. Restriction is put on the PGBP guy that once he selects the new regime, he has to stick to the new regime. So another smart thing which a student can observe, look at the conditions. Look at point number 6. Brought forward losses and brought forward unabsorbed depreciation, which is pertaining to the first 4 points above, they are not allowed to be set off carry forward. They are not allowed to be carried forward. You cannot set them off. Okay. But if you want to pay tax under 115 BAC, you have to satisfy this condition. But 115 BAC is optional. You can exercise this option in the current assessment year. You can exercise the option in a future assessment year also. Which means I could be a person who is covered in PGBP, who has brought forward PGBP losses, who has brought forward unabsorbed depreciation. I can first set off those losses and pay tax under the old regime only. And then once those losses are set off, I can then exercise the new regime. It's an option which can be exercised in any assessment year. The section is introduced in the current assessment year. In the current assessment year 2021. But you can, it's not necessary now that if it is introduced in the current year, you have to exercise it in the current year only. So I can first allow my brought forward losses and brought forward unabsorbed depreciation to be set off. Pay tax as per the old regime only. And then when I have nothing brought forward, then I can go for the new regime. Also, now it's too premature, but I can still talk like this. Deduction under 10AA is allowed for 15 assessment years. Deduction under this section is available for 15 years. For 15 assessment year, every year ka profit is allowed as a deduction. It is not spread over 15 years. A 1/15 ka concept nahi hai. Every year's profit is available as a deduction for 15 years. So what if I am already in the 12th year? Up my business in a special economic zone in the year 2008-9, and I am taking a deduction under 10AA every year since 2008-9, and first 11 to 12 years are over. So no problem. I can wait for my 15 years to get over. Once I wait for my 15 years to get over, deduction is all deduction, whatever was available under 10AA, I claim those deductions. After taking the deduction, if there is any profit balance, I'll pay tax as per the old regime, which is at a higher rate, but I will pay the tax. Once my 15 years are over, now I can switch to the new regime, because in the new regime, 10AA deduction is not available, but I am anyways not eligible for 10AA because I have already claimed my 15 years ka deduction. Then new regime might be beneficial to me because slab rates are lower. Guys, did you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There are certain parts of this section 115 BAC which I am deliberately not discussing with you. I'm telling you right away that I'm not discussing the complete 115 BAC. The reason is these parts that I'm not discussing, they are connected with PGBP chapter, set of carry forward chapter, deductions chapter. So once I do those chapters with you and I do certain sections with you, then it will be possible. Then you guys will be ready to understand those subsections. I have currently discussed subsection 1 with you, subsection 2 with you, subsection 5 with you. 3 and 4 I have not discussed. Is it possible for me to take salary in my wife's name? She can start the new regime and I can continue the old regime until losses are recovered. The only problem that will arise is, okay, if you take salary in the name of your wife, now, how will you prove that it is in the name of your wife? No, I understand. Taking it in our account, I understand. It will have TDS implications also. Tax will be deducted in her name. You will have to file a return of income for her every year. If it results into a tax refund, you will have to claim a tax refund for her every year. That will be the procedure part. Even her case can be selected for scrutiny, wherein you will have to justify that, okay, this is the salary amount that is being paid to her. Also, if the company where you're doing a job should agree to this, okay, that you can justify that she's working, okay, that is not a big deal. But okay, if it's your company only, then the biggest problem that you will face is that salary paid from your own company to your wife will be covered by the disallowance under the PGBP chapter for the company, unreasonable payment made to relatives. So if the assessing officer picks up the company's case 48-2, yes, so there will be a disallowance for the company. So to take the benefit, no, you proving that she's working, it does not make sense. If it is in excess of the market rate, then that salary gets disallowed. If it is in excess of market rate, I'm not saying it is disallowed always. I'm saying it is disallowed only if it is in excess of market rate. And if it is in accordance with market rate, then then you realize that you are imagining so many things in this doubt. Your initial doubt started with the stuff, can you take it in the name of wife? Then you inserted salary. No. I agree with what you're thinking. I'm not outright rejecting it. I'm saying even I am giving you an answer based on terms and conditions. I'm also giving you a conditional answer. If this thing happens, then the repercussion for the company will also be that the amount of salary paid by the company can be disallowed by the assessing officer. So the whole salary will become taxable in the hands of your spouse as per the new regime. But for the company, something treated as unreasonable will stand disallowed. Company will have to do overall loss for you. Depends. Yeah, if you disallow it in the hands of the company, company will pay tax at a higher rate of 25% or 30% tax rate because company ka income will increase. So It depends on the numbers, it depends on the working. Is 115 BAC clear? And some part of the section is still pending to be discussed. But whatever discussion we've done, is it clear, guys? Okay, somebody had asked me, okay, does it mean that this section is beneficial to foreign institutional investors or for non-residents, generally speaking? Now, you can observe one thing. See, please keep your eyes on the screen now. The normal slab rates. My slab rates under the old regime. All non-resident individuals will be covered by the 2,50,000 slab rate. Even if you are a senior citizen or a super senior citizen, but you are a non-resident, it is 2,50,000 ka slab rate that will apply. Secondly, under the new regime, there is only one slab rate of 2,50,000. So, logically, if you just compare the slab rates, you will come to a conclusion that if I am a non-resident of India, new slab rates are beneficial to me as compared to the old slab rates because the rate of tax is lower. Prima facie conclusion that the rate of tax for a non-resident under the new regime is lower and under the old regime is higher. Basic exemption limit is 2,50,000, common in both. But (115) BAC is subject to the provisions of this chapter, that is chapter number 12. Now in chapter number 12, there are certain sections specifically applicable for non-residents from section 115A to section 115AD. If you earn those specific incomes, these specific incomes, then you pay tax not as per your regular slab rates, but as per these rates. As per these rates. And those sections are not overridden by 115 BAC. They are not overridden. If you go for the option of 115 BAC, then you will have to split your income into parts like this. 115A to 115AD give you an option. These sections give you an option that you need not file your return of income if you pay tax according to these sections. If you pay tax according to these sections, you need not file your return of income. If you cover yourself under the new regime, you have to exercise this option at the time of filing of return. So that means you have to file a return of income. So this will be the small thing that a non-resident will have to take care of. If he wants to pay tax under the new regime, filing of return will become mandatory for him. If he wants to pay tax as per the old regime, 115 to 115AD will still apply in the old regime also and in the new regime also. But here there is a benefit that he need not file a return of income if he satisfies 115A to 115AD ka conditions. Other than that, again, as I said, it depends on the numbers, whether old regime or new regime, what is beneficial. Non-residents, even if they're a senior citizen or a super senior citizen, it will not make a difference for the slab rates. Old and new will remain the same. Non-residents, whether they are senior, super senior or non-senior, old slab rates and new slab rates will make no difference. For resident persons, yes, it will make a difference. If you are 60 or above and a resident of India, new regime gives you a basic exemption limit of 2,50,000 only. Old regime gives you a basic exemption limit of 3 lakhs. If you are a senior citizen who is a resident of India, old regime gives you a basic exemption limit of 3 lakhs. New regime gives the basic exemption limit at 2,50,000 only. This is a disadvantage for the resident if he switches to the new regime. Super senior citizen get a basic exemption limit of 5 lakhs in the old regime, and they get only a 2,50,000 basic exemption limit in the new regime. A disadvantage for super senior citizen. Non-residents, they are indifferent because for them the slab rate remains the same. Can I move ahead, guys? Taking you back to what we were discussing. Yesterday's lecture plus the session today. Now, where are we? What are we doing currently? We are discussing tax rates. The person that we have picked up here is individual. Individual who does not opt for 115 BAC, that is the old regime, normal slab rates are applicable. New regime, different slab rates, but computation of income changes. Rebate is available to both. Surcharge applies in the same manner. We saw that yesterday also. Health education says 4%. First person, individual, we have discussed the slab rates. Now, moving ahead.